We are gathered here today to witness a bond that transcends the accord, forged by genuine affection.
The hum of the Viridian-class patrol cruiser, Vanguard Sentinel, vibrated through Commander Jaxen's quarters, a familiar thrum that usually soothed him. Tonight it grated. His reflection in the polished obsidian view screen showed a man etched with weariness, his usually sharp, emerald-green eyes dull. The past few cycles have been a relentless blur of star charts and emergency relays, each one painting a grimmer picture of the sector. The Vorlag, a parasitic species known for their rapid consumption of planetary resources, were expanding their blight faster than anticipated. Jaxen ran a calloused hand over his closely cropped, dark hair. He was 30 standard cycles old, and the weight of protecting the outermost colonies of the Concordat felt heavier with each passing solar cycle. A soft chime from his comm panel interrupted his grim contemplation. "Commander, the Council requests your presence. Urgently." It was Lieutenant Nara's crisp, efficient voice. He sighed, adjusting the collar of his deep blue, utilitarian uniform. "Acknowledged, Nara. On my way." He stepped out into the pristine white corridor, the familiar, sterile scent of recycled air filling his nostrils. The Vanguard Sentinel was a fortress, a symbol of the Concordat's might, yet lately, it felt more like a fragile shield against an encroaching tide. As he made his way to the council chambers, he passed crew members, their faces taut with unspoken concern. The usual camaraderie felt muted, replaced by a pervasive sense of dread. The Vorlag's advance was not just a military problem. It was a societal one, draining resources and hope alike. The council chambers were stark, a circular room dominated by a holographic projector in the center. 4 high-backed chairs, crafted from a dark, dense wood native to the Concordat homeworld of Xylos, were arranged around it. Seated there were the 3 current council members. Elder Kylar, his ancient, wizened face a roadmap of Xylos' history, his deep purple skin almost blending with the shadows of the room. Counselor Rhea, a formidable woman with sharp, intelligent eyes and vibrant orange skin, her posture always impeccably straight, and Counselor Zarthus, a younger, more pragmatic leader with striking red skin and a constant furrow in his brow. The 4th chair, perpetually empty, was for the Supreme Arbiter, a figure of myth and legend, only called upon in times of unimaginable crisis. Their somber expressions told Jaxen all he needed to know. This was worse than he'd imagined. "Commander Jaxen, thank you for joining us," Elder Kylar began, his voice a gravelly whisper that nonetheless commanded attention. "The situation with the Vorlag has escalated. We've received new intelligence." A star map shimmered into existence in the center of the room, highlighting a rapidly expanding red stain at the edge of Concordat space. It was moving, consuming. Jaxen's gut tightened. "Their latest surge is unprecedented," Counselor Rhea added, her voice resonating with controlled urgency. "They've bypassed the Epsilon blockade and are heading directly for the Xylos Prime colony." Xylos Prime, his home. A cold dread seeped into Jaxen's bones. "Our current fleet deployment simply isn't enough to halt them," Counselor Zarthus stated, his red skin paling slightly. "We need an immediate, substantial reinforcement." Jaxen's mind raced, calculating defensive positions, fleet movements, resource allocation. "Our reserves are depleted. Counselors, the ongoing skirmishes have stretched us thin." Elder Kylar nodded gravely. "Precisely, Commander. Which brings us to the proposal." He paused, and Jaxen felt an inexplicable tension build in the room. The Stellar Accord of Unity, an ancient pact between our Concordat and the Celestial Sentinels of the Lyra system, has a little-known clause. In times of existential threat, it permits a unique form of alliance. Jaxen frowned. "Unique? What does that mean, Elder?" Counselor Rhea leaned forward, her orange eyes fixed on him. "It means, Commander, that the Sentinels, a species renowned for their unmatched technological prowess and their powerful psionic abilities, are bound by this accord to offer a solution. A union." Jaxen blinked. "A union? Of what kind?" Counselor Zarthus sighed. running a hand over his furrowed brow. A matrimonial alliance commandée, between a Concordat leader and a sentinel of high standing. The words hung in the air, heavy and absurd. Jaxen stared at them, a laugh bubbling up, quickly suppressed. A marriage? To solve a galactic invasion? With all due respect, counselors, this sounds like something out of an ancient folktale. Elder Kylar's gaze was unwavering. The Sentinels interpret the Accord literally, Commander. Their word is their bond. Their technology, their psionic might, it could turn the tide against the Vorlag. Jaxen shook his head, utterly bewildered. And I'm to be the groom? You are a decorated commander, Jaxen, Counselor restated, her tone firm but not unsympathetic. You possess the necessary strategic mind, and your lineage traces directly to the founders of the Concordat. You are, regrettably, the most suitable candidate. Jaxen felt a surge of disbelief, then a cold anger. Suitable? I am a soldier, not a political pawn. I have dedicated my life to protecting the Concordat, not marrying for it. Counselor Zarthus shifted uncomfortably. We understand your reluctance, Commander, but the alternative is the potential collapse of Xylos Prime, perhaps even the entire Concordat. The image of his homeworld, vibrant with life, succumbing to the Vorlag's blight, flashed in his mind. He clenched his fists. And who is this sentinel? Elder Kylar activated a secondary holographic projection. A figure coalesced in the air before them, breathtaking in its ethereal beauty. She possessed skin the color of twilight indigo, deep and mesmerizing, and eyes like twin galaxies, swirling with an ancient wisdom that seemed to penetrate Jaxen's very soul. Her form was gracefully elongated, yet powerfully built, hinting at both strength and elegance. Cascading silver hair, like spun starlight, framed a face of exquisite symmetry, her lips a gentle, enigmatic curve. Her attire, woven from what appeared to be pure light, clung to her alluring physique with an almost liquid quality, accentuating every graceful line. Jaxen felt a jolt, a primal response he hadn't anticipated. She was undeniably, overwhelmingly beautiful. This is Lyra Astra, High Emissary of the Celestial Sentinels, Elder Kylar announced, his voice tinged with reverence. She has already arrived in orbit aboard her vessel, awaiting your decision. The thought of meeting this being, let alone marrying her, sent a wave of inexplicable terror and reluctant fascination through Jaxen. Awaiting my decision, he repeated, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. Jaxen stood on the command bridge of the Vanguard Sentinel, staring out at the vast expanse of stars, trying to reconcile the cold reality of the Vorlag threat with the bizarre proposal from the Council. His conversation with the Council had ended with a clear ultimatum. Accept the matrimonial alliance or face the almost certain destruction of Xylos Prime. The weight of billions of lives rested squarely on his shoulders. He felt a profound sense of helplessness. Lieutenant Nara approached him, a calm tablet in her hand. Commander, High Emissary Lyra Astra is requesting a direct comms link. She wishes to speak with you. Jaxen took a deep breath. This was it. Put her through, Lieutenant. On my private channel, the view screen shimmered, and Lyra Astra's form materialized, bathed in the soft, ambient glow of his quarters. Her indigo skin seemed to absorb and reflect the light in mesmerizing ways, and her galactic eyes held a depth that made him feel utterly transparent. He swallowed hard. High Emissary, he began, his voice a little rougher than he intended, Commander Jaxen of the Concordat. Her lips curved into a subtle, knowing smile, revealing teeth that were perfectly proportioned, though subtly different from his own. My name is Lyra Astra. Just call me Lyra. Her voice was a melody, a resonant hum that seemed to vibrate directly within his chest. I understand you have questions regarding the Accord and our union. Jaxen felt a flicker of annoyance at her serene demeanor. Questions? High Emissary, my people are facing annihilation, and your council is proposing a marriage. Forgive my lack of decorum, but this feels less like a solution and more like a cosmic joke. Lyra's smile didn't waver. Humor is a valuable tool, Commander, especially in times of great stress. However, I assure you, the Stellar Accord of Unity is no jest. It is a pact forged in the earliest days of interstellar travel, a testament to the foresight of our ancestors. She gestured, and a holographic scroll appeared between them, shimmering with ancient script. The matrimonial clause, as your council refers to it, is a fail-safe designed to merge the strengths of two cultures when one faces an insurmountable threat. Merge strenguits. Jaxen scoffed, crossing his arms. By forcing a marriage? What exactly do the Sentinels gain from this merger, High Emissary? We are a military society, not a breeding program. Lyra's eyes seemed to twinkle with amusement. We gain an ally, Commander, and perhaps a deeper understanding of your species. As for a breeding program, our protocols are far more nuanced than you imagine. The Accord specifies not merely a physical union, but a profound melding of minds, spirits, and purpose. She paused, her gaze holding his. And as for what I gain, I am bound by the Accord, Commander, as are all High Emissaries when the clause is invoked. My destiny is intertwined with my people's commitment to this ancient pact. Her honesty, stark and unembellished, disarmed him slightly. And if I refuse? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Lyra's expression softened, a hint of genuine sorrow in her eyes. Then the Accord is breached. Our aid cannot be extended. The Vorlag, they will consume Xylos Prime. A cold wave washed over Jaxen. So, my personal choice dictates the fate of billions. Indeed, Lyra affirmed, her voice gentle. A heavy burden, Commander. One that I, too, carry. My role in this is not merely ceremonial. I am here to facilitate the success of this union, for the sake of both our peoples. She tilted her head, her silver hair shimmering. But this union cannot be truly effective if it is entirely against your will. While the Accord compels a commencement, it does not compel success. We must both choose to engage with an open mind. An open mind, Jaxen repeated, running a hand through his hair. To marrying an alien I've just met, for the sake of saving my planet. He let out a humorless laugh. What exactly does this melding of minds, spirits, and purpose entail? Lyra's smile returned, wider this time, utterly captivating. It entails a courtship process, Commander. One designed to foster understanding, compatibility, and eventually, a genuine connection. There will be cultural exchanges, intellectual challenges, and, yes, intimate assessments of our biological and psionic resonance. All to ensure that if we do choose to finalize this union, it is built on a foundation of mutual respect and, hopefully, affection. Jaxen stared at her, the sheer impossibility of the situation battling with the undeniable allure of the woman before him. Intimate assessments? Psionic resonance? He shook his head. This is going to be a long courtship, Lyra Astra. Indeed, Commander, she said, her galactic eyes sparkling with something he couldn't quite decipher. But perhaps also an enlightening one. The next morning, Jaxen found himself standing awkwardly in a cavernous, reconfigured section of the Vanguard's Sentinel's deepest research bay. Lyra had, with a simple wave of her hand and an inexplicable shimmer of energy, transformed the sterile bay into a tranquil, almost ethereal space. Soft, pulsating indigo light emanated from the walls, and the air hummed with a low, melodic tone that was both soothing and subtly stimulating. Cushions woven from a shimmering, iridescent material floated gently in a central clearing. Lyra stood in the middle, her indigo skin radiant against the soft lighting, a flowing garment of pale silver accentuating her alluring physique. She looked less like a diplomatic emissary and more like a celestial being. "Welcome, Commander." Lyra's voice resonated through the space, a pure, bell-like quality that made the air itself seem to vibrate. This is where we shall begin our journey of understanding. The first phase of our courtship protocols focuses on biopsionic synchronization. Jaxen shifted his weight, suddenly hyper-aware of his utilitarian uniform and his own earthly limitations. Biopsionic synchronization. What exactly does that involve? Lyra gestured to one of the floating cushions. Please sit. It involves a gentle blending of our life energies, Commander. A shared meditation to align our neural pathways and energetic signatures. It allows us to perceive each other on a deeper, more fundamental level. He sat on the cushion, which instantly molded to his form, surprisingly comfortable. Lyra sat opposite him, her eyes, those swirling galaxies, fixed on his. Now, she murmured, her voice dropping to a hypnotic whisper. Close your eyes, Commander. Release your thoughts. Feel the gentle hum of the sentinel beneath us, the subtle energies flowing through your own body. Jaxen closed his eyes, his mind stubbornly replaying tactical scenarios and Vorlag projections. Focus on your breath, Lyra prompted, her presence a warm, calming aura beside him. Inhale the vastness of the cosmos. Exhale the burdens of the day. Match your rhythm to mine. He tried, focusing on the soft, steady cadence of her breathing. Gradually, the tension in his shoulders eased, and the mental chatter began to recede. Then he felt it, a subtle warmth like sunlight on his skin, but originating from within his own mind. It expanded, reaching outward, and he felt a corresponding gentle touch, a probing, curious awareness meeting his. It wasn't intrusive, merely present. His eyes snapped open. Lyra was watching him, a faint smile playing on her lips. You felt it, she stated, not a question. Our psionic signatures beginning to intertwine. Jaxen felt a strange mix of fascination and unease. What was that? It felt like you were inside my head. Lyra chuckled, a soft, melodic sound. A rudimentary connection, Commander. Think of it as a handshake between our minds. It facilitates empathy, allows for a more direct transmission of abstract concepts. She extended a hand, her slender fingers tipped with perfectly formed, almost translucent nails, beckoning him. Now, to enhance this, we will engage in a mutual energy transfer. Place your hand in mine. Jaxen hesitated for a split second, then reached out. Her indigo skin was surprisingly warm, soft, and impossibly smooth against his. A jolt, like static electricity, ran through him, then settled into a steady, resonant thrum. The soft hum of the room intensified, and the light on the walls pulsed in sync with his own accelerated heartbeat. Lyra's thumb began to trace slow, deliberate circles on the back of his hand, and Jaxen felt a wave of unexpected sensation, a warmth spreading through his arm, then his chest. Remarkable, Lyra whispered, her galactic eyes widening slightly as she gazed at him. Your biopsionic output is exceptionally strong, Commander. And the resonance, it is almost instantaneous. A shimmering holographic display materialized between them, showing two interlocking energy patterns, one pulsing with a verdant green, the other with deep indigo. The patterns shifted, merging, becoming indistinguishable. Our energies are aligning, Lyra explained, her voice breathless. The integration is progressing at an accelerated rate. This suggests a profound, innate compatibility, Commander, beyond what the Accord typically anticipates. Jaxen stared at the display, then back at Lyra's mesmerizing face, inches from his own. He could feel her warmth, her very essence, seeping into him. The subtle, exotic scent of her, like rare interstellar blossoms and cool starlight, filled his senses, making his head swim. What does profound innate compatibility mean in practical terms? Jaxen managed, his voice strained. Lyra's gaze intensified, her pupils dilating slightly. It means, Commander, that our very beings resonate. That the potential for a bond, far deeper than mere alliance, is present. It means our physical and mental responses are already harmonizing. Her words, soft as they were, seemed to ignite something within him, a spark of pure, unadulterated attraction that completely eclipsed the strangeness of the situation. It means, she continued, her voice dropping to a low, alluring murmur, that the next phase of our assessment will be considerably more revealing. Before Jaxen could respond, a harsh, grating voice cut through the serene ambience of the transformed bay. Compliance check. Identity verification required. The door hissed open, revealing a being that made Jaxen's blood run cold. The new arrival was a creature of stark, unsettling geometry, all sharp angles and whirring mechanisms. Its skin was a dull, rusted yellow, and its four spindly limbs moved with an unnerving, jerky precision. Its head, a multifaceted sphere, rotated slowly, a single, glowing red optic sweeping the room. It wore a heavy, official-looking tunic adorned with a myriad of blinking lights and obscure insignias. In its primary hand, it clutched a data slate that whirred ominously. By the protocols of the Interstellar Matrimonial Oversight Bureau, the creature intoned, its voice a grating cacophony of metallic screeches and static. I am Unit 734 Delta, designated compliance auditor. My mission is to ensure adherence to contractual stipulations. Lyra withdrew her hand from Jaxen's, her composure returning instantly, though her eyes held a flicker of intense irritation. Jaxen, however, felt a surge of pure, unadulterated fury. Who authorized this intrusion? He demanded, rising to his feet. The auditor's glowing red optics swiveled to him. Authorization is inherent in my directive. Matrimonial protocols involving species of differing galactic affiliations necessitate stringent oversight. Stringent oversight at the expense of our privacy. Lyra's voice was sharp, a rare edge to her usually melodic tones. Auditor, this is an unwarranted disruption of the delicate synchronization process. Such interference could compromise the integrity of the data. Unit 734, Delta's multifaceted head tilted, a mechanical whirring sound accompanying the movement. Data integrity is paramount. However, emotional distress metrics indicate increased neural activity in the Concordat male, suggesting resistance to the protocol. This requires immediate assessment. It began to move, its spindly legs carrying it directly towards Jaxen, its data slate now projecting a complex web of bio-readings. Jaxen felt a protective instinct flare, not just for himself, but for the fragile connection he had just begun to forge with Lyra. Stand down, Auditor, he commanded, his voice firm, echoing with military authority. You are interfering with a Concordat military operation. This vessel is under my command. The Auditor paused, its optic fixing on Jaxen. Your military designation is noted, Commander. However, the Interstellar Matrimonial Oversight Bureau operates under a higher authority, established by consensus of the Galactic Council. Your personal authority is superseded by interspecies contractual law. Our accord specifically grants us autonomy in the initial courtship phases, Lyra interjected, stepping subtly in front of Jaxen. Her voice was calm, but her indigo eyes glowed with a fierce resolve. This constitutes a violation of established Sentinel diplomatic protocols. I will be filing a formal grievance with the Bureau. Unit 734 Delta emitted a series of rapid clicks and whirs. Grievance noted. However, observation will continue. The success rate of coerced matrimonial unions is statistically low when unchecked. My presence is to ensure optimal compliance. It then pointed a manipulator arm at a section of the bay wall. This area will serve as my monitoring station. A section of the wall shimmered and reformed, creating a small, enclosed observation booth. Jaxen watched in disbelief as the Auditor, without further argument, simply moved into its new station, its red optic now visible through a translucent barrier, staring at them. Optimal compliance, he muttered, shaking his head. This is an absolute farce. Lyra turned to him, a faint, wry smile gracing her lips. Indeed, but a challenge we must face, Commander. Our progress, it seems, is now a matter of interstellar record. She gestured back to the cushions. Shall we continue, Commander? Or does the presence of an Auditor disrupt your focus? There was a subtle challenge in her tone, an unspoken question of his resolve. He looked at her, at the quiet strength in her gaze, and felt a renewed determination. He wouldn't let this bureaucratic monstrosity derail something that suddenly felt incredibly important. "No," Jaxen said, squaring his shoulders. "It doesn't disrupt my focus. Let's show the auditor what optimal compliance truly looks like." He sat back on the cushion, pulling his hand back to his side, but he met Lyra's gaze steadily. "What's next?" Lyra's smile broadened, and a spark of genuine amusement danced in her galactic eyes. "Now, Commander, we move to the next phase, sensory attunement. It involves a deeper connection, a shared perception of our physiological responses." She reached for his hand again, and this time, Jaxen didn't hesitate. Her touch was just as electrifying, just as warm. The indigo light around them pulsed, mirroring his accelerated pulse. He glanced at the auditor's booth, where Unit 734 Delta was already busily whirring, its red optic fixed on them. "Sensory attunement," he repeated, a new kind of anticipation stirring within him. "And what precisely does that entail?" Lyra leaned closer, her breath warm against his ear, her unique scent intoxicating. "It entails experiencing each other's physical sensations, Commander. A subtle merging of our neural feedback loops. Every touch, every subtle shift in temperature, every whisper of breath, we will perceive it together." Jaxen felt heat rise in his cheeks, acutely aware of the auditor's watchful gaze, yet utterly captivated by Lyra's proximity. Together, he whispered, a tremor in his voice. "This should be interesting." The sensory attunement session, under the unblinking red optic of Unit 734 Delta, proved to be unlike anything Jaxen had ever experienced. Lyra's hands, impossibly soft, moved across his forearms, then his neck, sending shivers through him. But it wasn't just his own skin that registered the sensation. He felt it too, through Lyra, a mirror of his own touch, amplified by her unique physiology. When her fingertips brushed his pulse point, he felt the thrumming of his own blood, and simultaneously the rapid, delicate beat of her own. It was disorienting, exhilarating, and deeply intimate. "Your physiological responses are remarkably vibrant, Commander," Lyra murmured, her voice a low, melodic hum that resonated in his very bones. Her silver eyes, normally a swirling cosmos, seemed to focus entirely on him, reflecting every nuance of his reaction. "The biopsionic overlap is nearing 98%. Truly exceptional." The holographic display between them, monitored by the whirring auditor, showed increasingly complex patterns of intertwining energy. 98%, Jaxen repeated, his voice a little hoarse. He could feel the warmth radiating from her, the subtle shift of her flowing garment against her alluring form, and inexplicably, he felt as if he were feeling the garment against her skin. It was an uncanny, almost overwhelming sensory experience. "And what does 98% mean for a soldier like me?" Lyra's lips curved into a slow, tantalizing smile. "For a soldier, Commander, it means that in a shared objective, our thoughts would align, our reactions would harmonize, our very beings would act as one. In a less martial context, it implies an unparalleled depth of connection. Every shared experience will be magnified, every joy, every sorrow. It means quite simply that we are designed to be profoundly entwined." Suddenly, the grating voice of Unit 734 Delta cut through the serene atmosphere. "Interference detected. Unauthorized external psionic signature registered within the Concordat Males neural network." Both Jaxen and Lyra snapped their heads toward the auditor's booth. "What are you talking about?" Jaxen demanded. The auditor's red optic glowed brighter. A residual psionic imprint from a previous, unrecorded mental engagement. Analysis indicates a deeply ingrained emotional connection. This constitutes a breach of prerequisite contractual conditions for a pure alliance. Lyra's indigo skin seemed to pale slightly, her galactic eyes narrowing. "What is this, Auditor?" "There has been no prior psionic engagement with Commander Jaxen from any Sentinel, let alone myself, beyond our current, sanctioned protocol. Unit 734 Delta ignored her, its worrying increasing in intensity. A new holographic display materialized, showing a faint, shimmering outline of a human female figure overlaid with Jaxen's own neural map. It pulsed with a soft, ethereal light. The imprint is of a Concordat female. Long-term emotional bond indicated. Compatibility metrics suggest an established, non-contractual pair bond. This union cannot proceed under current parameters. Jaxen felt a cold dread wash over him. A prior bond? What are you detecting? The auditor swiveled its multifaceted head toward him. It is a memory, Commander. A powerful, deeply rooted one. A connection to a female designated Lyra. Her image is prominent within your subconscious. It is clouding the purity of the biopsionic synchronization. Lyra. The name hit him like a physical blow. Lyra, his childhood friend, his confidant, the woman he had loved, who had been lost to a Vorlag raid years ago. A pain, sharp and unexpected, twisted in his gut. He hadn't thought of her with such clarity in cycles. Lyra's eyes softened, a profound understanding dawning in them. Commander, is this a past connection? Jaxen nodded, unable to speak, the sudden resurfacing of his grief overwhelming him. The accord requires a clean slate. The auditor droned on, oblivious to the emotional turmoil. All prior significant emotional attachments must be resolved or severed to ensure complete dedication to the interspecies matrimonial contract. Failure to comply will result in immediate termination of the protocol and revocation of Sentinel aid. Termination? Jaxen finally managed, his voice strained. Because of a memory? A loss? Lyra stepped closer, her hand resting gently on his arm. Auditor, the commander's emotional state is a natural human response to loss. This is not a breach. It is a manifestation of his complex psychological makeup. It can be addressed through the standard emotional integration modules within the courtship protocol. Unit 734, Delta's optic narrowed. The module is designed for minor, transient attachments. This Lyra imprint is deeply embedded, highly active. It poses a significant impediment to optimal pair bonding. It's a memory of someone I cared about, who was taken from me. Jaxen roared, pushing past Lyra, his face a mask of anguish. You want me to just erase her? Forget her? Is that your optimal compliance? The auditor was unmoved. The contractual obligation is absolute, Commander. A clean neural pathway is required for complete psionic integration. Either the imprint is purged or the protocol is abandoned. Lyra stepped between them, her indigo skin shimmering, her eyes radiating a powerful, protective aura. Auditor, you overstep your authority. The Sentinel commitment to the Accord is based on true union, not forced erasure of identity. Commander Jaxen's past, his experiences, are part of who he is. They cannot simply be discarded. Unit 734 Delta emitted a high-pitched whir. A High Emissary advocating for noncompliance? This will be noted in my report. Note what you wish, Lyra retorted, her voice cold with resolve. But Commander Jaxen will not be forced to abandon his past. His strength comes from his resilience, from his ability to carry both joy and sorrow. To demand otherwise is to demand an incomplete being. And we Sentinels do not forge unions with incomplete beings. Jaxen stared at her, a profound gratitude swelling in his chest. She was defending him, defending his memories, even at the risk of jeopardizing the entire mission. The tension in the chamber was palpable, thick enough to taste. Unit 734 Delta whirred ominously, its red optic fixed on Lyra. High Emissary, your stance directly contradicts Bureau Protocol 887 Gamma, Section 5, Subsection B, regarding the elimination of pre-existing neural blockages. Lyra stood tall, her indigo skin radiating a quiet power. And I refer you, Auditor, to Sentinel Article 9 of the Stellar Accord, which guarantees the mental and emotional integrity of all parties entering a matrimonial union. We do not compel emotional lobotomies, even for the sake of optimal compliance. Jaxen, still reeling from the unexpected resurfacing of Lyra's memory, felt a surge of admiration for Lyra's unwavering defense. She wasn't just a beautiful alien, she was fiercely principled. "So, what's the verdict, Auditor?" Jaxen challenged, stepping closer to Lyra, a silent statement of solidarity. "Are we compliant or not?" Unit 734 Delta emitted a series of rapid clicks, its mechanical processes apparently struggling with the unforeseen defiance. The conflicting protocols necessitate a higher arbitration. I will transmit my findings to the Appellate Tribunal of the Galactic Council for immediate review. Until their ruling, the matrimonial protocol is hereby placed on provisional hold. Provisional hold? Lyra repeated, her voice laced with incredulity. While the Vorlag advance on Xylos Prime, the integrity of interspecies contracts supersedes temporary planetary conflicts. The auditor droned, entirely devoid of empathy. The tribunal's decision could take up to 3 standard cycles. During this period, no further compatibility assessments are permitted. Any attempt to circumvent this directive will result in permanent termination of the Accord and severe trade sanctions against both the Concordat and the Celestial Sentinels. With that, Unit 734 Delta whirred once more, then retracted into its observation booth, which sealed shut with a soft hiss. The glowing red optic remained, a constant, irritating reminder of their new predicament. Jaxen ran a hand through his hair, the previous emotional turmoil now replaced by a cold, strategic frustration. 3 cycles? We don't have 3 cycles. The Vorlag will be at Xylos Prime's doorstep by then. Lyra turned to him, her face etched with concern. This is unprecedented. The Bureau is notoriously slow. They value procedure above all else. She walked over to the sealed booth, her hand resting against the shimmering surface. "They have trapped us, Commander." "Us?" Jaxen asked, a bitter laugh escaping him. "This is my people's crisis, Lyra. You don't have to be caught in this bureaucratic nightmare." Lyra turned to face him, her galactic eyes blazing with intensity. "You forget, Commander, my people are bound by the Accord. And I, as High Emissary, am bound to its spirit. A contract forged for mutual aid cannot be abandoned simply because a mechanical auditor dictates a hold based on an emotional memory. My honor, and the honor of the Sentinels, is at stake." Her unwavering commitment struck a chord deep within him. It wasn't just about duty for her. It was about principle, about forging a genuine connection. "So what do we do?" Jaxen asked, his gaze meeting hers. "We can't just sit here and wait for the Vorlag to arrive, or for the tribunal to issue some sterile ruling." Lyra's lips curved into a faint, defiant smile. "Indeed, Commander, we cannot. The auditor said no compatibility assessments are permitted. It said nothing about cultural exchange." Jaxen frowned. "Cultural exchange? What good will that do against the Vorlag?" "Knowledge, Commander, is a weapon," Lyra stated, her voice regaining its melodic quality, a spark of cunning in her eyes. "The Accord states that extensive cultural exchange is a prerequisite for a successful union. It is how 2 disparate species learn to understand, trust, and ultimately collaborate." "And the auditor?" Jaxen asked, glancing at the unblinking red optic. "It can monitor our cultural exchange all it wants. It cannot dictate the nature of our understanding, of our connection. We will simply accelerate the cultural exchange phase. We will learn everything there is to know about each other's societies, our strengths, our weaknesses, our very ways of thinking. We will forge a bond that is not just contractual, but profound." Her plan was audacious, risky, and utterly brilliant. By adhering to the letter of the Accord, they could subvert its spirit, building a foundation for their union right under the auditor's nose. "You're suggesting we use the cultural exchange to bypass the auditor's hold?" Jaxen asked, a grin slowly spreading across his face. Lyra's smile widened, revealing a flash of her unique, perfectly formed teeth. "Precisely, Commander. We are forced into close proximity anyway. We may as well make the most of it. We will learn your military strategies, your historical conflicts, your social structures. You will learn of our psionic abilities, our diplomatic intricacies, our philosophical tenets. She paused, her gaze holding his. And in doing so, we will learn of each other as individuals far more intimately than any compatibility assessment could ever achieve. And if the tribunal rules against us? Jaxen pressed, though a hopeful spark had ignited within him. Lyra's expression became resolute. Then we will have formed a bond so strong, a shared understanding so deep, that no bureaucratic ruling can sever it. And perhaps, she added, her voice dropping to a whisper, that bond will be enough to move the Sentinels to action, regardless of the accord. Jaxen looked at her, at the raw determination radiating from her. This wasn't just about duty for her. It was about principle, about forging a genuine connection. All right, he said, a surge of adrenaline mixing with the lingering ache of Alara's memory. Let's begin the cultural exchange, High Emissary. Let's make it the most comprehensive exchange the galaxy has ever seen. A knowing smile passed between them, a silent pact forged in defiance. The following week unfolded in a dizzying whirlwind of unexpected revelations and intense learning. The research bay, still infused with Lyra's indigo light, became their classroom, their forum, and their shared sanctuary. Unit 734 Delta remained a constant, silent observer in its booth, its red optic tracking their every move. But its presence soon faded into the background as Jaxen and Lyra immersed themselves in their cultural exchange. Lyra began with the Sentinels' understanding of psionics. She taught Jaxen basic mental exercises, not for power, but for control and awareness. Your mind, Commander, she explained one cycle, her voice soft as she guided him through a visualization, is a vast ocean. Most beings only ever skim its surface. We Sentinels learn to navigate its depths, to perceive the currents of thought and emotion, both our own and others. He found himself surprisingly adept, a nascent psionic awareness stirring within him, allowing him fleeting glimpses into her vast, complex inner landscape. Not thoughts, but sensations, emotions, and underlying serenity, even amidst the turmoil. He, in turn, shared the intricacies of Concordat military strategy. He showed her holographic simulations of their starship formations, explained the logic behind their defensive perimeters, and detailed the historical campaigns that had shaped their tactical doctrines. Lyra absorbed it all with a ravenous intellect, her questions sharp, incisive, revealing a mind that processed information at an incredible speed. Your blitz maneuvers are fascinating, Commander, she observed during one session, pointing at a simulation of a Concordat flanking strategy. The reliance on swift, decisive force, rather than protracted engagement, is distinct from Sentinel conflict resolution, which prioritizes psychological incapacitation. Their conversations stretched for hours, seamlessly flowing from military theory to Xylosian philosophy, from Sentinel art forms to Concordat social structures. Jaxen found himself opening up about his past, about Alara, the lingering grief that the auditor had so crudely uncovered. Lyra listened with a profound empathy, her galactic eyes reflecting his pain without judgment. Loss, she murmured one evening, as the indigo light softened to a twilight glow, is a universal constant, Commander. It is not a weakness to carry it, but a testament to the depth of your capacity to love. Your Alara, she is not a blockage but a foundation. Her memory shapes the man you are. Her words, delivered with such gentle understanding, were more healing than any therapy he had ever undergone. He learned about her species' unique form of communication, a blend of telepathy and intricate vocalizations. He learned of their complex societal hierarchy, governed by the wisdom of the High Emissaries and the collective consciousness of their stellar conclaves. He learned of Lyra's own journey, her rigorous training to become a High Emissary, her deep-seated commitment to the Stellar Accord, not as a rigid law, but as a living promise. She was patient, endlessly curious, and surprisingly funny, her dry wit often catching him off guard. he discovered she had a peculiar fondness for ancient Xylosian riddles, a challenge she tackled with a playful intensity. One afternoon, during a break from discussing interstellar trade agreements, Jaxen found himself telling her about his homeworld, Xylos Prime. He described the sprawling crystal cities, the vast, shimmering oceans, the unique flora that pulsed with bioluminescent light. He spoke of the annual Festival of Lights, where the entire planet would glow, a beacon of peace and prosperity. He found himself describing it with a passion he hadn't realized he still possessed, the worry for his home momentarily overshadowed by the joy of sharing it with her. Lyra listened, utterly captivated, her indigo skin seeming to glow with his enthusiasm. "It sounds magnificent, Commander," she whispered, her galactic eyes filled with wonder. "A true jewel of your sector. And these festivals of lights, do you participate?" Jaxen nodded, a faint smile on his face. "Every year. It's a time for family, for reflection, for hope. My family always gather at the azure cliffs, overlooking the luminous sea." He stopped, suddenly self-conscious. "Forgive me, High Emissary. I am rambling." Lyra reached across the floating cushions, her hand gently taking his. "Never apologize for sharing your world, Commander. It is through such shared experiences, through these windows into your soul, that true understanding blossoms." Her thumb traced the lines on his palm, and he felt that familiar jolt, but now it was accompanied by a profound sense of peace. He looked at her, at the exquisite beauty of her form, at the wisdom and warmth in her eyes, and realized that somewhere amidst the diplomatic maneuvering and the impending doom, he had begun to fall for her. Not because of a contract, but because of who she was. A week blurred into another, the rhythm of their cultural exchange becoming a comfortable, almost vital part of Jaxen's existence. The Vanguard Sentinel, once a mere vessel, now felt like a second home, largely due to Lyra's presence. He found himself anticipating their sessions, not with dread, but with a quiet eagerness. He had come to value her intellect, her compassion, and the unexpected flashes of humor that illuminated her ancient wisdom. One morning, as they discussed the philosophical implications of first contact protocols, Jaxen noticed a subtle change in Unit 734, Delta's observation booth. The red optic, usually unblinking, seemed to flicker, and a faint, high-pitched whine emanated from within. Lyra, attuned to every subtle energy shift, also noticed. Her head tilted, her indigo eyes narrowing slightly. The auditor seems agitated. Suddenly, the whine intensified into a distressed shriek, and Unit 734, Delta's multifaceted head, began to spin erratically. A torrent of metallic clicks and garbled speech erupted from its internal speakers. Anomaly detected, unforeseen data parameters, incompatibility with established metrics. The auditor, seemingly in distress, was broadcasting system alerts. "What's happening?" Jaxen asked, rising to his feet. Lyra's expression was a mixture of concern and a strange, knowing amusement. "It appears, Commander, that our cultural exchange is producing results the auditor cannot comprehend." She walked over to the sealed booth, her hand resting on the surface. "Your programming, auditor, is limited by rigid parameters. You cannot compute variables such as empathy, genuine connection, or the profound understanding that arises from shared vulnerability." Just then, the comm panel on the wall chimed urgently. "Commander Jaxen, Lieutenant Nara reporting. We're receiving an unprecedented surge of data from the auditor's monitoring station. It's overloading our comms, Commander." Jaxen rushed to the panel. "What kind of data, Lieutenant?" It's incomprehensible, sir. Emotional resonance patterns, neural synchronicity graphs, highly advanced biosignatures. It's like the auditor is screaming in binary." Lyra turned from the auditor's booth, a triumphant, radiant smile spreading across her face. "It is not screaming in binary, Commander. It is attempting to process the impossible. It is struggling to categorize a bond that transcends its predefined compatibility metrics." She looked at him, her galactic eyes sparkling with joy. "We have broken its programming, Commander. By forging a genuine connection, we have rendered its rigid protocols irrelevant." The auditor's frantic whirring intensified. Then, with a final, shuddering click, it went silent. The red optic dimmed, then winked out completely. Unit 734 Delta was, for all intents and purposes, offline. It had shut down? Jaxen asked, utterly dumbfounded. Lyra nodded, her smile soft and incredibly alluring. "It could not reconcile the data, Commander. Its internal logic loops were overwhelmed by the strength of our burgeoning bond. We achieved more than optimal compliance. We achieved genuine resonance. A resonance its limited programming could not compute as merely contractual." Just as the silence settled, the comm panel chimed again. "Commander, an urgent Priority 1 message from the Appellate Tribunal." "It's a direct override, Commander." Jaxen activated the comm. The stern, disembodied voice of the tribunal arbiter filled the bay. "This is a direct ruling from the Appellate Tribunal. Case: Concordat Sentinel Matrimonial Protocol 77, Delta 9. Due to unprecedented and unquantifiable data readings from Compliance Auditor Unit 734 Delta, indicating a profound and verifiable non-contractual bond between Commander Jaxen and High Emissary Lyra Astra, the provisional hold is hereby lifted. Furthermore, given the unique nature of the established connection, the Tribunal grants immediate authorization for the expedited finalization of the matrimonial union." Jaxen stared at the comm panel, then slowly turned to Lyra. They expedited it. "Because we broke the auditor." Lyra chuckled, a sound like wind chimes. "Precisely, Commander. Our defiance became our greatest asset. They cannot deny what their own instrument, however limited, attested to." She stepped closer to him, her indigo skin shimmering, her galactic eyes filled with warmth and triumph. "So, Commander, it seems our cultural exchange has achieved its ultimate goal. The stellar accord of unity is not merely fulfilled. It is affirmed in a way even the tribunal could not have foreseen." He reached out, his hand finding hers. Her skin was warm, vibrant, full of life. "So," Jaxen said, a wide, genuine smile spreading across his face, "I guess we're doing this." Lyra's smile was radiant, utterly captivating. "Indeed, Commander. It seems fate and a rather overwhelmed auditor have conspired to unite us." The unspoken question hung in the air. What now? For the first time in cycles, Jaxen felt a lightness, a profound sense of hope, even with the Vorlag still looming. He looked at Lyra, the stunning, courageous woman who had turned his world, and perhaps the galaxy's fate, upside down. "What happens next, Lyra?" Her eyes sparkled with a promise of adventure. "Now, Jaxen, we build our future. Together." The formal union ceremony was held 3 days later, not in the confines of the Vanguard Sentinel, but in the tranquil, shimmering gardens of Xylos Prime itself. The Council, bowing to the Tribunal's expedited ruling and the undeniable, palpable connection between Jaxen and Lyra, had transformed a section of the capital city into a breathtaking venue. Arcadian flora, usually reserved for diplomatic receptions, pulsed with soft, multicolored light, casting an ethereal glow on the assembled dignitaries from both the Concordat and the Celestial Sentinels. Even a few bewildered, minor officials from the Interstellar Matrimonial Oversight Bureau were present, their rigid posture seemingly softened by the sheer beauty of the surroundings. Jaxen stood at the heart of the garden, clad in a ceremonial uniform of deep blue and gold, feeling both utterly overwhelmed and incredibly alive. His family, those who remained, stood proudly nearby, their faces alight with a mixture of joy and disbelief. Elder Kylar, Counselor Rhea, and Counselor Zarthis formed a solemn line, their expressions radiating relief and hope. Across from him, Lyra shimmered into view, escorted by 2 silent, majestic sentinels whose forms seemed woven from starlight. She wore a union gown, a flowing creation of pure, liquid silver that flowed around her alluring physique like water, catching the ambient light and reflecting it in 1,000 dazzling facets. Her indigo skin, usually so calm, held a faint blush, and her silver hair, adorned with crystalline xylosian blossoms, cascaded around her. Her galactic eyes, usually pools of ancient wisdom, were wide with a beautiful, vulnerable happiness. The Supreme Arbiter, a legendary sentinel figure whose presence was rarely seen outside of the direst intergalactic crises, stood between them. Her form was a swirling vortex of pure psionic energy, barely contained within a shimmering, translucent shell, her voice a chorus of harmonious tones that resonated deep within the soul. "We are gathered," the Supreme Arbiter intoned, her voice echoing with the weight of galaxies, "to witness the formalizing of a bond that has transpired beyond mere accord, a union forged not by mandate, but by the blossoming of genuine affection." Jaxen looked at Lyra, his heart swelling. He remembered his earlier cynicism, his desperate attempts to cling to his mundane life. Now, standing here, with her before him, he knew he wouldn't trade this moment for anything. The memory of Lyra still existed, a gentle ache, but it was no longer a wound. It was a part of him, a testament to his capacity for love, a love that now, inexplicably, beautifully, expanded to encompass Lyra. "Commander Jaxen," the Supreme Arbiter's voice shifted, focusing directly on him. "Do you, of your own free will, and with a heart open to the unknown, choose to accept this sacred union with High Emissary Lyra Astra of the Celestial Sentinels?" Jaxen met Lyra's gaze, her silver eyes mirroring his own raw emotion. "I do," he stated, his voice ringing clear and strong, filled with a conviction that surprised even himself. "I choose this union, not because of duty, not because of a contract, but because I choose Lyra. I choose us." A ripple of murmurs, a mixture of human cheers and sentinel chimes, swept through the assembled crowd. "And High Emissary Lyra Astra," the Supreme Arbiter addressed her, "do you, with the wisdom of the stars and the boundless compassion of your people, choose to accept this sacred union with Commander Jaxen of the Concordat?" Lyra's smile was radiant, tears glistening in her galactic eyes. "I do," she whispered, her voice a melody of pure joy. "I choose this union. I choose Jaxen. I choose the path that has unfolded before us, unexpected and extraordinary." The Supreme Arbiter extended a shimmering hand towards them. "Then let your hands meet, and let your spirits entwine. By the power vested in me by the stellar accord of unity, and by the undeniable resonance of your souls, I pronounce you bonded." Jaxen reached for Lyra's hands. As their fingers intertwined, a surge of warmth, familiar yet newly potent, flowed between them. A brilliant burst of indigo and emerald light flared from their joined hands, expanding to envelop them both, then arcing outwards to embrace the entire garden. The assembled crowd gasped, some shielding their eyes from the dazzling display. When the light receded, Jaxen felt a profound connection, a deepening of the psionic bond they had already forged. He could feel Lyra's joy, her love, her very essence, interwoven with his own. He looked at her, his vision blurred by the lingering light, and he saw not just a beautiful alien, but his partner, his future. "So," he said, his voice husky with emotion, "what happens now, wife?" Lyra's laugh was like a shower of silver bells, pure and unburdened. "Now, Jaxen, we embark on the ultimate cultural exchange. We face the Vorlag together. And then," her smile became teasing, alluring, "we discover the true depths of profound compatibility." Jaxen grinned, pulling her closer. "I think I'm ready for that." The cheers erupted around them, a harmonious blend of two cultures, celebrating a union born of desperate necessity, but solidified by an undeniable, unexpected love. For the first time in a long time, Jaxen looked to the stars not with dread, but with an exhilarating sense of possibility.